module 3. This looks like 6 to 3.
Uh, we're going to talk a little bit about truth today, and that is a really sticky word. Um,
We're
so,
going to talk about what today? You cut out.
truth. We're going to try to figure out what the truth is. What is
Truth. I don't know what I thought you said. What
no,
what is this?
I mean, you might think it's hard. Oh yeah, obviously it's got to be this. Well, nothing is obvious really in the real world. And I think we've all kind of figured that out in the last few years. So
Yeah. So first module we talked about just one variable data, just
mhm.
collecting one piece of information and running some statistics on it. In the second module, we talked about like collecting two pieces of information, so bivariate data, and running some statistics on it. So actually, we're going to kind of backtrack a little bit now. So now we want to say, okay, how do we begin the process before we get the data? So what does the before we go gather data look like?
And that may seem a little backwards, but those first two modules were kind of easy for me. This section is a little philosophical, so let's just jump right on it. Okay. And there's the first section of every module is kind of just an introduction. So the essential knowledge for this module is, or for this lesson, is that when we're collecting data, we want to rely on chance to figure out what's going on. Okay. So I'm going to need to unpack that a little bit, though. What do you think that means, Miss Young?
Well, if we're looking for methods of collecting our data that don't give us untrustworthy conclusions, we have to really be careful because there's so many ways that we could collect data. And like I could go ask a bunch of, oh, what are you saying? You're holding your phone up.
I was going to say, have you gotten a telemarketer call lately?
I don't answer them, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, how many of you get phone calls? I get them all the time. I just got one. I was stupid enough to answer because I was expecting someone to call me. And it was somebody trying to ask me a question. Now, I immediately hung up, right? Am I trustworthy response to and then maybe that was a really important survey. It wasn't, but.
I
So.
just got a FaceTime call. That's what happened on my screen.
Okay, right now while we're recording?
Yeah, while we were recording.
Okay.
So
we all maybe experienced that. And if we can't actually, like, I have never actually answered a poll. I always hang up. My opinion is never represented. I don't have a chance. They don't have a chance to figure out what I know. So maybe their results are not reliable because there are a lot of people who don't ever offer up an opinion.
right.
Okay. So there's got to be a way to try to gather fairly a broad spectrum of data, I think is a good way of saying this. I think we're both saying it in long, drawn out ways.
Yeah. And basically, we're going to talk a lot about this. Like, what we're talking about is called bias. And so we're going to spend a lot of time talking about how do we collect data so that it is trustworthy to make a decision on. So that's kind of what we're looking at.
And the word bias also has a lot of baggage too. We think about racial bias or gender bias or whatever. We actually have statistical bias where we are perhaps not fairly representing different groups or different aspects of the things we want to know. So that's kind of what we're talking about. And so this is actually, I think right now it is July 21st, and this is going on right now as we're recording this. By the time you watch this, you will have the results of the survey. And I think this is maybe important to you.
Probably a little important.
Bit to you.
Yes.
During this summer, you and your folks had to decide, were you going to go to school on site? Were you going to go to school fully online, or were you going to do some hybrid? That was Lakeside's plan in July. Now, I have no idea what you're experiencing when you're watching this video. Hopefully everything is wonderful and whatever. But Lakeside Surveying is trying to get this information from all the stakeholders. Okay, now who are the stakeholders for Lakeside?
The families.
The families, yeah. There are a bunch of kids that Lakeside needs to know what to do with, and it's of all the families that
Right.
have.
And so, and you guys have to understand too, like they're wanting 100% of the families to contact. Are they going to get 100%? Well, they better, because if they don't, they're not going to know if a kid is coming back, not coming back. You think you're going to be on campus, off campus. So, this is a rare instance where you're actually trying to survey 100% of the population of your stakeholders. But that's not always the case.
Yeah, and I really don't think they're going to be able to do it. How many families are there at Lakeside? At Lakeside, there's over almost 4,000 families, right? Well, maybe 4,000 students. So probably some of them have multiple children in the grade. Let's say there's probably 2,500 families. Right? Do you think they're going to get every one of those 2,500 families by August 24th?
I think they're in trouble if they don't, because you really don't know what to expect with those kids.
Show up at their door without, they're going to have a really hard time. They're going to have to go knocking on doors. Okay. Right. So let's look at some of these questions here. Okay. So at the time, again, this is July when we're recording this. And we will have this conversation, I think, whenever we get to this module in reality, we'll probably actually talk about this. Okay. So we'll probably have some discussions that are live, or at least through discussion board, so that we can just see how this actually turned out, because I don't know. The person talking to you right now doesn't know, but by the time we're in this watching this module, we will know the results. But why do you think Lakeside needs to know these numbers? Miss Young is doing this for her school right now, so why do you care about this, Miss Young? Sorry to.
No, that's okay. So, when we think about this question, we always are going to try to use statistics, try to use the data to drive a decision, right? The decision here is like, how do we prepare school for the 2021 school year? How do we prepare school and still maintain CDC guidelines and our governor's mandates? So the survey, one, is just to tell us how our kids coming back, because we need to know that. And two, to inform what school's going to look like and to make sure we can keep it safe, right? So that's kind of what we think about when we're trying to use data to inform decision making.
And I think that's a very legit reason. I mean, I can't think of a better reason than safety.
Yeah.
So, all right. So what problems could arise right now as Lakeside as the administration tries to gather this data? I'll take a first shot at this one. They may have a hard time catching people.
So another problem that we're running into is people are changing their minds. So our data is fluid until we make a hard deadline. So you're making a plan, and then the governor changes his mind about something, and then the families change their mind about something, and all of a sudden my data's wrong, and I've got to come back to the drawing board with it.
I mean, first of all, you might just be on vacation. Some families may go out of, there are people still taking vacations, and they may be out of the state or out of in the country at the time of the survey.
I don't know where they would go, because everybody's, said no to Americans.
Yeah, that's true. But they were traveling, and there are people traveling within the state. But still, or they just may not have the resources. There are people that don't have internet access. I lived in a place that didn't have internet access when I taught at Lakeside. But yes, you're absolutely right. What you think in July may not be what you want to do in August, because things are certainly changing very fluidly.
Yes.
Okay. And then how can we improve our reliability? So if I want to put a text box down here, I might say, I would say we would maybe try to follow up with people.
Yeah, I also want to make sure that when I ask the questions, they're clear and the expectations are clear. So if I ask parents and families to make a decision about how their kids want to come back to school, but I don't explain what all virtual looks like, or I don't explain what a blended model looks like, well, my families might change their mind when they get a look at what that model does look like. So I want to make sure that my questions and my content on my survey are very clear.
Sure. Great. So, I mean, these are things that the administration all have to think, and this is what Miss Young is doing right now because she works and is doing this for ESTEP. So, and all this work, every time one thing happens, it's going to change. So,
Right.
Better you than me. Okay. So we did this kind of for something that was like micro, like on your life, and that you all had to go through that decision, and the decision's since been made by the time you're watching this. But I can't wait to have this conversation in September or October, whenever we're watching this video. But in general, if you're a researcher, you have a question you want to answer, you are wanting to test to see if your toilet paper is better than somebody else's toilet paper, if my soda is better than your soda, or if a certain pregnancy test is reliable or not. Or if you're just trying to poll the audience to see who's going to win the next presidential election.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You have to think through your process. And the first thing you obviously have to think about is what is the question you're trying to answer? And I think Ms. Young did a great job about it. Is your question clear and answerable that everybody can actually understand it and knows what you're at? So,
right.
So what about the next thing?
So the next thing is who's your target audience? Like, to answer that question, where do I need to go to get it answered? Who do I need to ask? What do I need to look at? And we're going to look at a lot of things because I think, we keep saying survey. So you're thinking it's humans, but that's not always the case, right? It could be a ton of different things. So the next thing is, after you determine what are you curious about? What do you want answered? Now I need to figure out who needs to answer that question.
And that question might actually be a measurement. It might be a weight of a bug versus a different bug. Or it might be, calories in different types of food products.
Right. Or it could be crops on a field, 2 different fields, or, something like that.
And then the third one is really a sticky wicket that a lot of y'all are going to serve problem. And maybe my example, Lakeside, wasn't perfect, but I still stand by my fact that Lakeside administration, even though they think they're going to get a hold of every family, they're not. Not going to be able to find and get that answer from every family by August. There's going to be people who just avoid them. And that's what happens with the census takers. Right now we're going through the census as well, and they hire people to go knocking on doors.
I actually don't know that I would compare the two. We have 100% in the high school right now with this because parents are very, very, very concerned about school next year. And
Sure.
So, we got 100%. I bet Lakeside gets 100%. And if they don't get 100%, I bet it is a 1 or 2, it is going to be a very small number. The census is a little different. Most people are like, I don't care. I don't care about the census. I don't have any skin in that game. So that's a little bit different.
But if I'm trying to figure out the mileage of a certain model of car, there's no way I'm going to be able to find the gas mileage of every Ford F-150 that is on the road right now.
Crappy. That's what the gas mileage is.
Terrible, but I can't get a hold of every Ford 150 that's on the road now.
Yes.
That's ever been on the road or will ever be on the road.
Yeah.
I cannot get all of them. So what I have to do is I have to take what we call a representative sample. I want to fairly pick and spread out my data collection so that I have a good sample.
Yes.
Okay. We'll talk a lot about that. That's super.
Yeah.
And that actually gets to the fourth question: is the result that I got reliable? So I want to take you to the most famous statistical mistake of all time. Mistake. And I think you all probably lived through this, and maybe I do. I mean, you might think we have political leanings, and maybe we do, but we really.
Everybody has a political leaning.
Well, some people just don't care about politics, but this was the biggest famous in Pew Research. I went to Pew Research and found some information about the 2016 presidential election. It's very commonly known that Hillary Clinton was projected to win the 2016 presidential election, and she lost. And I don't want to get into politics and whatever the belief is, but everybody thinks the statisticians were wrong. But the thing that I read when I went through this website, you can go look through the results, was that the statisticians predicted that Hillary would get 48% of the vote and Donald Trump would get 45% of the vote. That was what the statisticians predicted. The actual official total was 48 to 46. They were off by 1%. And they did predict, and Hillary Clinton did, whether you believe it or not, did receive, at least according to the results, the accepted results, she received more total votes.
Yeah.
What caused Donald Trump to win was the placement of those votes, and it was Wisconsin, back up. It was Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania that were so razor thin close that the all or nothing nature of the Electoral College, it flipped the script and let him win the Electoral College while he lost the popular vote. And I just threw this in here because I thought it was neat to see the breakdown of the different gender.
I do think I've actually been trying to listen to you, but I've been looking at the like breakdown of like who voted Hillary and who voted, Donald Trump. It's very interesting. I'm not going to comment on it, but I do think it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you can certainly see, but it's based on the fact that, and I think this actually goes down. If you actually look at the actual Google Slides, the picture was way longer than I could fit on here. And all of this is common knowledge. All of this was from Pew Research, which is a reliable statistical evidence. But I want you to realize statisticians can be right, and everybody blames them still. Okay, this was not a mistake. It was not. So, okay, here is your assignment, and I really don't like overthink this, and don't try to cheat. What I want you to do is take your phone out and give yourself an egg timer of 3 minutes. Okay.
Can they just use their phone timer and not an egg timer?
The phone timer on whatever. I don't care. 3 minutes. If you get I don't care. Don't try to give yourself more time. Don't overthink this. Put 3 minutes on the clock and read and go through this passage and find all of the G's.
Count those G's, baby.
How many G's are in this passage? You just count it. And when your timer goes off, it's what it is. Don't overthink it. Just because our point is, I realize if you had unlimited time, you could go back and double and cross them out or whatever, but just try to do it quickly, because in reality, when I'm gathering data, I only have so many resources. I only have much time to gather information. If I spend too much time taking surveys or measuring Ford F-150s, the data will be useless. So I got to get the data in a timely time. So that's my point for this.
A timely time? Cool.
Yes, a timely time. So when you get your total, all you're going to do is count G's in this short passage. However many, if you say there are 2,000 G's in this passage, you're going to go on as your homework and submit that number to us. And that's it. That's all you got to do.
Okay. Bye, you guys. We hope you enjoyed this short lesson, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye. Bye.